The 2026 NFL Draft was known to be a fairly weak quarterback class. However, 2027 looks so much more promising. So in today's video, I want to talk about the 2027 quarterback draft class and why it is so much better than the 2026 quarterback draft. Hit the like and subscribe button if you're new and going to enjoy. Let's hop into it. So how I want to do this is I want to talk about 12 different prospects that I think could end up in this draft class, briefly cover their little profile, and then at the end of the video, we'll compare this draft class with next year's draft class. And we are going to begin with one of the more talked about prospects in a long time. We're talking about Arch Manning of the Texas Longhorns. So as you guys can see, your boy is a Texas Longhorns fan, but I always try to take the logo off the helmet. I don't ever put any bias towards it. Arch Manning, to me, he's in contention to be the #1 quarterback in this draft class. There's just so much to like about him as a prospect. Obviously, the first half of the season last year wasn't very pretty. It took him, honestly, about 4 or 5, maybe 6 weeks of the season to really get comfortable. And you could put that on a ton of different things. You could just put that on himself for, some of the mechanical issues he had. You could put some of it on the offensive line for their struggles. The receivers had a lot of drops on the season, but all of that put together, I think it all honestly made Arch Manning a better player by the end of it. By the end of the season, he looked so much more comfortable. The playmaking chops was better. His accuracy improved as the year went on. It's still something he has to clean up. His mechanics can be a little bit all over the place. He's got to be a bit more accurate, but he's a really good athlete with a really strong arm and excellent frame. He's obviously a Manning, so that's going to, of course, help his profile. But even if you changed his last name to Arch Smith, I think he'd still be one of the top prospects in this class. He's an awesome prospect with a lot to like about his game. And now you look at this Texas Longhorns team, and you got Cam Coleman, Emmett Mosley, Ryan Wingo, Gooseby, Brandon Baker, and 2 NFL running backs behind him, of course, and Steve Sarkisian. So yeah, Arch Manning is going to be supported this year, and I expect him to have an awesome year. But then let's move over to Dante Moore, the quarterback for the Oregon Ducks. Let's take you back in time here just a couple, honestly, months ago at this point. Before the combine, before the draft, around the national championship, there was a lot of conversations about Dante Moore potentially being the #1 or #2 pick in the 2026 draft class. But then, in some ways surprising, but in some ways not so surprising, he decided to go back to Oregon for one more year to get a little bit better. Now, this is a massive risk on his end. It's a risk that I think is worthwhile for him because ultimately, if he wants to be an NFL caliber quarterback, getting as many reps as possible underneath your belt is obviously very smart. And Oregon is a team that I expect to be very good next year. Clemson, Penn State with Drew Allard, Garrett Nussmeier, and Cade Klubnik, those schools, they were a little bit more volatile than a team like Oregon. So I do expect Dante Moore to be really good, but it is a massive risk on his end because, again, I think he would have been #1 or #2 taken by either the Jets or the Raiders. So it's a big time risk, but there's a lot to like about him. 6'3", 206 pounds. Looks like he's gotten a little bit bigger this offseason. Hopefully he can continue to get bigger and stronger. He's got a really quick release, really good deep ball accuracy. His biggest knock is that he can be a little bit inconsistent on underneath routes, which is bizarre because you think he'd be better at those because it feels like every single quarterback should be good at those. But things like screens, things like dump offs, he's just been a little bit inconsistent with. And his athletic profile is nothing insane or anything crazy, but all in all, he's a very efficient quarterback who gets through his reads. His pocket presence is pretty good. He can read the field nicely. He's an NFL caliber quarterback that, honestly, getting another year under his belt to refine his craft is probably a good thing for him. So yeah, I expect him to have a big year. It's a really good Oregon football team that, kind of like Texas, has multiple guys that are going to get drafted or be, on an NFL roster at some point. So yeah, it'll be fun to see him play next year. Next up, we're going to talk about the guy on the right, Drew Mestemaker, now at Oklahoma State. If you don't know who Drew Mestemaker is, he was at North Texas last year and put together a 4,300-yard season with 34 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. And I think this was just his first year starting last year. Then he transfers over to Oklahoma State, and there is a lot to like about this guy's game. 6'4", 211, really solid arm, an excellent athlete. He processes the field very well. He's got playmaking chops. And he's very similar to, if you look at Drake May after a couple years at North Carolina, there's some comparisons you can make there. There's also some comparisons to a bigger Jordan Love. And I say bigger as in he's got a thicker framed guy. So he's kind of similar to those guys. The question is going to be, can he translate the game from North Texas now over to the Big 12 at Oklahoma State, which I believe he went to Oklahoma State because I want to say his offensive coordinator is now on the staff of Oklahoma State. I don't know if he's the head coach or what he is, but I believe that's why he went there over what probably would have been some other big time offers out there for him. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like about this guy's game. His biggest flaw is that he is mechanically all over the place, which his accuracy is not really a big issue, right? Like for the most part, he's pretty accurate, except for some deep shots down the field that are a little bit sporadic. But even though his mechanics can be kind of wonky, he still gets the ball in the right location. So, I'm not sure how much teams are going to coach that out of him, but he's got to be a little bit cleaner, and I'm sure he will get a little bit more clean. And I think he needs just to be a little bit more on time and playing in rhythm. There's times where he likes to play a little bit of some hero ball, but generally speaking, the frame, the size, the upside, the potential, it's all there. Just clean up the mechanics a little bit, and you're talking about somebody that could be drafted really early in the 2026 draft. Or 2027 draft, I should say. All right, then we go over to Lenoris Sellers, still at South Carolina. Honestly, I was a little bit disappointed with Lenoris last year. Again, he was somebody who was also brought up in a lot of conversations for the 2026 draft. Not necessarily as the top guy, but more so maybe sort of a mid to late round, first round pick sort of guy. But honestly, with Ty Simpson going at 13, honestly, there is a conversation that Lenoris would have went higher. 6'3", 240 pounds, cannon of an arm, good mobility as well. He can run like crazy. I mean, this guy is the package of a bit more of an experienced Anthony Richardson in some ways. But I do think he's just a better player than Anthony Richardson coming out of college. I mean, Anthony played less than 10 games or something like that. Lenoris has been now a full-time starter for a year, played a lot his freshman year or the year before that. Now he's heading into a season where he's going to be, again, the full-time starter. I really was hoping that he would transfer out of South Carolina. And it's no disrespect to South Carolina because they are a decent program, and I like their head coach, but I just felt man, go to a different school with a different philosophy that can just continue to develop you a little bit more. I would have liked to have seen him go to a Miami or something like that because I think he would have absolutely blossomed there. But he is he's the prototypical size, cannon of an arm, mobility, just the high flashes that you see on this guy's game. He'll go a quarter of playing NFL caliber football, but he's just so inconsistent, at least right now. His biggest knock is he holds on to the ball way, way, way too long. There's so many sacks that he eats that's just all on him, where he's got to get the ball out faster. But again, one more year now in college. It's a big sort of prove it year. Even if he doesn't put together a drastically improved, season, I do think you're looking at somebody who could still find themselves drafted somewhere in the top 100 and be given the leeway to potentially develop into something special. Because again, the talent is all there. There's so much to like about him, but it's just the inconsistencies and holding on to the ball way too long that hopefully he can clean up. I also do want to give him a little bit of some slack here. That South Carolina offensive line last year was horrendous. So hopefully with an improved offensive line, he'll feel a little bit more comfortable, get the ball out a bit more on time, and just look better. But again, that's exactly why I did not want him to return to the school. I want him to transfer out to go to a better team. But, we'll see if South Carolina put the right pieces around their guy. Then we get to CJ Carr out of Notre Dame. Now, for the longest time, I did not have him on the 27 big board because I thought he was actually going to go potentially one more year at college and go to 2028 draft. But you never know. So he is in this video, but he is one of those guys where it's I wouldn't expect him to be in this class yet. Hence why in my 2027 mock draft, I didn't consider CJ Carr. But if he does decide to go pro after this year, I think that he'll be a top contender in this class. 6'3", 210 pounds, had a very productive season last year as a starting quarterback for Notre Dame. Pretty inexperienced player. Last year was his only year starting, and it was an offense that heavily relied on Jeremiah Love, on Jadarian Price, on getting the ball out quickly and on time. But he's got a great frame with a solid arm. He plays with some anticipation. He's relatively accurate. The big question for me just comes down to what does he look like now when the offenses ran basically through him now? Because now you don't have those two NFL first round running backs, right? You don't have Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love no more. So how does this offense look when teams aren't stacking the box as much, when you're going to be asked to pass the ball across the yard? It's going to be very interesting, but he has the arm talent. He's got the potential. The accuracy is pretty solid. There's not a lot of flaws to his game, just more so just inexperienced and wanting to see more out of him. But yeah, man, he can drive the football. I wouldn't call his arm talent overly special. Like, I do think there's players in this class with better arm talent, but I think it's really good arm talent that honestly is NFL caliber. So yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do now, being kind of the full-time I don't know, function of the offense, I guess you can say. It'll be interesting. Again, he might be somebody that just plays 3 years or 4 years of college football, and it wouldn't surprise me, just so he could be maximized at Notre Dame and then go to the pros as a fully fleshed out prospect. But yeah, man, a lot to like about him. He's got all the makeup in the head of an NFL quarterback. All right, moving over to the next one. I don't know if this is an actual picture of Sam Levitt, but it's supposed to be Sam Levitt. I found it on Google. I couldn't find a good image of Sam Levitt in an LSU uniform. It's Sam Levitt. He transferred to LSU out of Arizona State. Last year, he was a little bit banged up at times, so it was a little bit disappointing. Still thought he had a really productive season when he was healthy. But really his freshman, or I think it was his freshman year. I guess it wasn't his freshman year, but his first year starting at Arizona State, the year with Cam Scatabo and all those guys, there was a lot to like about this guy, right? Decent frame, 6'2", 205 pounds. I mean, it's not like 6'3", 215, 220, which is what you like to see in him. But, you know, he's got a decent enough size. Really solid arm, excellent playmaker, one of the more turnover-free quarterbacks in college football. Last year only had 6 interceptions. This year only having 3 interceptions, or this past year only 3 interceptions. So really takes care of the football really well. I wrote down for him that he fits a modern offense, right? An offense that likes to get the ball out quickly, an offense that likes to take some shots down the field, run the RPOs, work on play action, you know, do a lot of screens. Like, he fits kind of this modern offensive structure where, again, like what we've seen from the McVays, like the Shanahans of the world, where you don't really need a world beater at quarterback. Like, Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. He's not no world beater by no means. McVay obviously has Stafford now, but for a couple years there, he had Jared Goff, not a world beater, but guys that could function in an offense because they got the ball on time, they didn't turn the ball over, they made all the necessary plays, they were accurate, they didn't miss reads. That's what Sam Levitt to me could end up being. But then he offers that upside of being able to make some plays with his legs because he's a really solid athlete where he can run a little bit, you know, extend plays with his legs, break tackles, you know, the Caleb Williams stuff. Like, he can do some of that stuff as well. The big question for me is he's played in an offense now where in year 1 as the starter, he had Cam Scatabo, who was one of the best running backs in the country that year. And then this past year, he played with Jordan Tyson, who, when healthy, was the best receiver in college football, not named like Jeremiah Smith or like Cam Coleman, at times Cam Coleman, but those sort of guys. So you were playing with some superstars, and you could tell that the offense didn't ever really fully run through Levitt, right? When Cam Scatabo was the guy, the offense ran through Cam Scatabo. When Jordan Tyson was there, a lot of the offense ran through Jordan Tyson. So now that he's going to be at LSU, and of course LSU's got a shit ton of talent, but they don't have, at least to the best of my knowledge as of right now, a Scatabo or a Tyson. So I'm intrigued to see what Lane Kiffin can get out of Sam Levitt. I thought this was a really good transfer, though, from Sam, like getting away from Arizona State. While, yes, obviously Arizona State was a good program, but now heading into a program in the SEC, seeing that step up in competition, but also stepping up with a better play caller, in my opinion, one of the best offensive minds out there, and a more talented football team, it's going to be pretty interesting. I think he should be in for a big year. All right, then we move over to Julian Sayin. Julian Sayin is not the top 5 prospect that some people might have on their big boards. He's a very clean prospect, but he's also like, he's a pretty easy read, right? I mean, and Ohio State fans, I don't mean this with no disrespect. I just want to give you guys the actual truth of the nature of this. Ohio State is one of the most stacked teams in college football, and you can tell how Julian Sayin plays. It's a bit of a projection to the NFL, right? 6'1", 208 pounds, so a little bit undersized for the position. He's got a good but not great arm. His mechanics are great, fast release, very accurate, makes all of the right decisions. He can layer throws over linebackers. He's accurate down the field. Like, he does everything pretty well, right? He's not really bad at anything, but he's a very limited athlete. He's a true pocket passer. But when you are looking at pocket passers, you have to be good at handling pressure. And when Ohio State faced better competition, when they faced the Michigans of the world, when they faced Texas in week 1, when they faced, Indiana in the playoffs or in the Big Ten championship, whatever it was, you really saw the flaws of Julian Sayin not being able to handle pressure. Miami was a great example of this. Not being able to handle pressure, not being able to step into the pocket, escape the pocket, use those legs. Doesn't really have much playmaking chops to him. He is a traditional pocket passer that needs the right pieces around him to be successful. And the good news for Ohio State, well, when you have an Austin Sareveld, when you have a Jeremiah Smith, when you had a Carnell Tate, when you had NFL backs, Bo Jackson is really good. It was a little bit easier for him. So, and even this year, there's so much talent on that roster that it's like, is Sayan going to be asked to put on a backpack and carry that offense? The answer is probably going to be no. When he was asked to be when he was asked to step up and be the guy and lead this offense, he couldn't really do it last year. So again, you have another year now. You have a full season under your belt as a starter. You have continuity with a lot of your guys on this offense. I'm hoping that the offense runs a little bit through Julian Sayin. I want to see him be a bit more comfortable in the pocket. I want to see him put on a little bit more weight. Like, I want to see all these things because right now I'm looking at a quarterback that I feel like has a pretty okay floor, but a very limited ceiling, which is why I don't really have him that high on my big board. Reminds me a lot of like a Mac Jones type of guy, where Mac Jones was good as the one-year guy at Alabama, but Alabama also had multiple first-round picks on that offense. So yeah, man, there's a lot to like about him, but the mobility, the lack of playmaking, and the way that he just kind of crumbles under pressure isn't ideal. All right, let's move over to Jaden Mayava out of USC. Yeah, man, I like Mayava a lot. I think Mayava has a really good chance of being a top pick in the draft class. He was another guy for a while there who some people thought might end up in the 2026 draft class, but I think he made the right decision to return for one more year and put on some better tape. The interesting thing about it is, like, if he did go into last year's draft class, or I guess this year's draft class, man, I think he would have ended up being a first round pick. I think teams would have talked themselves into him because 6'4", 230 pounds. He's got a good but not great arm. It's weird because he's so big, and you'd like to see him just put a little bit more oomph into the football sometimes. I feel like he has it in him, but he just hasn't really shown it. But the arm talent is good enough. His deep ball accuracy is some of the best in this class. Like, he can legitimately layer the football and just float it up there and get it right into the right spot. Really compact, quick release. He's a little bit of an athlete too, not necessarily an elite athlete, but he gets downhill. He's not afraid to put his shoulder into people. Like, he can do that sort of stuff. I think he sees the field pretty well. He's a smart player. His biggest issue is at times he can lock on to one target. He's got some accuracy woes here and there. Again, this kind of does come from the arm sometimes. I think footwork wise, but I think his mechanics arm wise are really sharp. I think his footwork can be a little all over the place. And through his now 3 years as a starting quarterback, I guess in 2024, not a full-time starter, but a part-time starter, he's thrown a lot of interceptions. This past year, 10. Last year, in a limited sample size, he threw 6. And his 2023 tape, where he wasn't at USC, I don't know what school he was at. He was at UNLV. He threw 10 interceptions. So he's thrown, 26 interceptions through 3 years. It's not the most ideal number, so he's got to really clean that up. But I think one more year under that USC system, and I think he's going to be able to put some things together. Next up, let's go ahead and move over to Darian Mensah, now at Miami. So Darian Mensah had a very productive career at Duke as a starting quarterback, and now is taking a big step up to go to Miami. This is somebody to keep an eye on, man. He is somebody to keep an eye on because he has been uber productive. Over 6,000 yards through 2 seasons, over 50 touchdowns through 2 seasons. He's 6'3", 220 pounds. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Gardner Minshew-like player, but I do think his ceiling is a very high prospect. Highly efficient, gets the ball to the right place, but also is a really solid playmaker too. Like, he's not afraid to use his legs to extend plays. I wouldn't necessarily call him somebody who is like a super special athlete or anything like that, but I do think there are times out there where every single year he's gotten better at just extending plays, getting out of the pocket, keeping his eyes downfield, nothing open, tucking the ball and getting what he can. I think in the short to intermediate game, like, that's where he really shines. Like, when he is just playing in rhythm on time, he doesn't really miss a ton. Like, he's very accurate. He gets the ball where he needs to be. Solid mechanics, very much a rhythm-based thrower. He does have some flaws, though. Like, his deep ball accuracy is a little bit all over the place. I think he can probably put on a little bit more weight. He's listed at 220. I'm not sure if that's what he actually is, but he looks a little bit light in frame. And he's got a lot of issues with like fumbles, which is weird. But you think for somebody who has a decent little frame to him, you think he'd be able to take care of the football a little bit more, but he puts the ball on the turf a little too often. But man, if he can get better at improving his vertical passing, getting the ball downfield on time and in rhythm. I think that'll help his stock out a ton. He needs to learn how to handle pressure a little bit better too. But all in all, like, he's got a lot of upside. And I think now getting to Miami, playing against better competition, playing with better teammates, I'm really excited to see what Darian Mensah can become, because again, another one of these guys that could have been a top pick in this year's draft class decided to go back for one more year, transfer to a better program, play better competition. He's somebody who I expect to play a lot better next year and honestly put on some really good tape. All right, these next three we're going to go over really quickly. We're going to talk about Nico Iamalava, DJ Lagway, and John Mateer. I didn't want to spend like 30 minutes on each little prospect here. Nico, great size, great frame, tons of talent. Really got better last year for UCLA, but honestly just needs to put it together for one more year. He's got a lot of upside, man. He can move a little bit, got a great arm, played a little bit more on time. I mean, 6'6", 215, a little bit light, but he's getting, he's putting on the muscle and the weight. I think he's a good player. It wouldn't surprise me, though, if he plays one more year at UCLA and then decides to go back to college for one more year, maybe transfers up to take a step back up in competition. That wouldn't surprise me, but at the same time, I also think that he might be somebody who, if he puts together some good tape at UCLA and UCLA has a better season, he might go pro. For DJ Lagway, he's another guy that I don't know if I'm going to have him in this class. I think he might be somebody who might play a full year at Baylor. We'll see if he can do good or not. But if not, maybe go somewhere else. I don't know. He's been very inconsistent through his young career. I mean, at Florida, so much was put on him as a 5-star and all this and that. Just didn't really work out there. Now transferring over to Baylor, the stakes are a little bit lower, but I mean, he's got the size, 6'3", 240 pounds, great arm. I mean, the highlights are really real with this guy. The question is just going to be, can he put it together at Baylor? I mean, we'll have to wait and see. And then John Mateer really started off the season well last year for Oklahoma, had the hand injury, and it hurt him for a few weeks there, but as the year progressed, he got a little bit better. He's a high stakes, high caliber type of guy where he's going to make some flashy plays, but sometimes you're going to live and die with those. When he's not on point, when he's missing throws, I mean, he can be a hard watch, but there was also times at Oklahoma last year where he was the catalyst of the offense, where he was the guy, and if he didn't perform well, Oklahoma lost that game. But yeah, I mean, hopefully this year Oklahoma has a better team around him. Actually, as a Texas fan, I hope not, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. But yeah, I mean, 6'1", 220, solid arm, good playmaking chops, good athlete. He'll be fun. A couple of other names to kind of keep an eye on: Josh Hoover, Rocco Becht, Byron Brown, Aiden Childs, Avery Johnson, a couple other guys. Brendan Sorsby would have been in this class, but now with the gambling stuff going on, he might be in the supplemental draft, and I wouldn't be surprised if a team decides to take a shot on him and give up something to go get him. I don't know. But all in all, when you compare it to this past year's class, again, let me remind you the 2026 draft class. We had Fernando Mendoza go 1. We had Ty Simpson somehow make it to 13 to the Rams. I mean, that one was surprising the Rams took him because he was a consensus late first, early second round pick, but they took him. Carson Beck, I think, was a third quarterback taken at the start of round 3. Then we saw Drew Aller. Later in the draft, we saw Garrett Nussmeier get taken by the Kansas City Chiefs. We saw Cade Klubnik go, I think, round 4 or something like that, and a couple other quarterbacks too. But generally speaking, like, it was Fernando Mendoza, Ty Simpson, and a whole bunch of like massive projections and just, whatever. Now you look at this draft class, and again, I want to emphasize, I made this video last year, a year ago, about the 2026 draft class, and I said basically the exact same thing. The only difference is last year we were talking about Arch Manning, we were talking about Lenore Sellers, I think we talked about Sam Levitt, maybe even threw in Dante Moore in that video, but now all those guys have returned for one more year in college, and if we expect them to be good to great to whatever, they should be in this year's draft class. We already think that Dante Moore is going to be a top 5 pick, right? We should expect that. But if Arch Manning puts together another good season like he did last year, especially towards the back half of the season, he's going to be a top pick. Drew Mestemaker, CJ Carr, Levitt, Sayin, Mayava, Mensah, et cetera, are all players who had really good seasons last year that if we assume they get slightly better or have similar seasons to what they had last year, they're going to be taken very early this year. And there's a lot of quarterback needy teams out there. We're talking the Cardinals, we're talking the Jets, we're talking the Browns, the Steelers, et cetera. There's a lot of good quarterback talent. Now, again, not all of these guys will go in this class. We talked earlier about CJ Carr. Will he go? Will he not? We talked about DJ Lagway and Nico and et cetera. All these other guys, Julian saying somebody too. We don't know if these guys are all going to go pro, but a handful of them we can expect them to go. So I wouldn't be surprised this year's draft class. I'm not saying you're going to have 5 or 6 first round picks, but 2 to 3 to 4 wouldn't surprise me, especially after last year's draft class where we only had what, 2, and it really only should have been like 1. I think we're going to get a much better draft class next year, not just at quarterback, but almost every single position. So yeah, keep an eye out on this quarterback draft class. Hopefully this video gave you guys some ideas as to who is going to be in this class and what they may look like heading to the pros. But yeah, man, a lot of excitement for this year's draft class. I mean, there's a lot of good content we're going to be making, so stay tuned for all that. If you're new, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button, and have a good day. Peace out.